right. Thank you for introducing this session, Katie. This is an incubator program for moving the needle in OER adoption. My name is Sarah Stokes, and I'm an educational developer at the Teaching and Learning Center at Ontario Tech University. And I'm joined today by my colleagues and friends, Pranjal Saloni, the OER lab coordinator at Ontario Tech University, and Rebecca Maynard, the Faculty Development Coordinator in the Teaching and Learning Center. Before we move into the full part of our presentation today, I would like to acknowledge the land that we are situated on at Ontario Tech. Ontario Tech University is located in Oshawa, Ontario, Canada, and we acknowledge the lands and peoples of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We are thankful to be welcomed on these lands in friendship. The lands we are situated on are covered under the Williams Treaties and are the traditional territory of the Mississaugas, a branch of the Greater Anishinaabeg Nation, including Algonquin, Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. So our presentation today is going to be really looking at how we can find meaning in OER creation and help develop sort of that capacity that institutions are looking for to really drive the agenda forward for open at your place of work or place of learning. So we're going to talk about today our OER Incubator program, which is a 7-week workshop series that was originally developed by our colleagues at Centennial College in Toronto, Ontario. And it was designed to support faculty, staff, and graduate students as they create a vision and a plan for OER integration into their courses. This journey begins with the creation of a course-specific OER vision and includes an intensive environmental scan to find and evaluate existing high-quality OERs that participants can adopt or adapt. They also identify opportunities to create new content and how to incorporate inclusive, accessible, and interactive design strategies into their work. Now, one key component of this incubator program is the activity guide. It helps turn these workshops from a passive theoretical exercise into something that is more tangible. It also plays a supporting role for participants who choose to participate in an asynchronous online version of the incubator, scaffolding the work so they're able to get as much out of the experience as the synchronous participants are able to. So with that in mind, we've provided an activity guide for you to complete during our time together online today. So if you would like to participate, and again, this is purely your choice, you can access it by scanning the QR code that I'm showing on the screen or by entering the URL bit.ly/OE-activity-guide. And if I could ask one of my presenter colleagues to maybe put the link in the chat so it's easier to access. I know sometimes QR codes don't really work as intended sometimes. But what we'll do is we'll keep refreshing the chat with the link so that you can use it when you need it during the presentation. And because this is an interactive session, we are using sort of icon cues so that you know when we're doing important parts of the presentation. So just for reference, these are the icons that we're using. The blue pen is indicating an area where we've given you time to use the activity guide and jot down your thoughts so that you come away with something tangible and practical after the presentation is finished. The orange heart is insights from our existing program that may inspire you to add or change some of the notes that you put down. And we also have a Mentimeter sharing activity, which is the blue bubble with the QR code in it. And again, optional sharing if you'd like to join us. So the URL for our activity guide is in the chat. You can click on it. You'll be prompted to copy it. So you can make your own copy in your Google Drive and kind of join along with us as we talk about this program. So what we'll be talking about today are the 4 F's of the program, the focus of the program, so how we've sort of looked to frame the work that our participants are doing, the framework itself, and how we've based the program on some essential components as per open education, the format, including talking about stakeholders and our delivery options that are available, as well as feedback. And that's how we tie everything together and link open educational practices to our work. So first of all, I'll be talking about the focus. And this is how we start off the program, but also start off our presentation. So we recognize here at Ontario Tech that faculty and staff are already very scheduled and occupied with things like research and teaching and service. And it can be really challenging to promote open educational resource adoption through sort of top-down approaches, so policies or recommendations. So to address this, what we've done is we've aligned our workshop with personal goals of our participants, which helps make participation meaningful and relevant to each individual. Our incubator program strives to provide opportunities for participants to reflect on what is meaningful about their experience. Goal setting is a tool that empowers individuals to envision those desired outcomes. And by setting clear and achievable goals, participants can map their journey to OER integration or creation. And those goals continue to serve as a compass, guiding their actions and decisions throughout the program and beyond. The visioning is about looking beyond short-term goals and creating a long-term vision that often extends outside the bounds of the program. It enables participants to imagine the impact of OER integration in their teaching, research, and service roles. A compelling vision also helps serve as motivation, driving individuals to work towards a larger purpose. Now, I know that many institutions implement top-down approaches like OER adoption policies or mandatory professional development programs about OER or OEP. And while well-intentioned, they can often feel rigid and uninspiring and a bit disconnected from personal goals and busy schedules. We aim to bridge this gap by allowing our participants to shape their own experience. Aligning our workshop with their personal goals is key to engaging the participants and connects the objectives with their aspirations. This approach also ensures that every step in the incubator journey is meaningful to the participant. So in our incubator program, week 1 is dedicated entirely to goal setting and visioning. During this week, participants define their goals and start crafting their OER vision. The vision they develop will serve as a guiding light throughout the program. Now, goal setting and visioning are not one-time events limited to week 1. We encourage participants to revisit and revise their goals and their vision regularly. As they progress throughout the program, just as you progress throughout this presentation, your understanding, inspirations, and priorities may evolve. So what I'd like to ask you to do is to open up that activity guide that we've placed in the chat. And I want you to think about, for the next 45 minutes while you're here listening to us talk, what is your goal? Is it to take away a few ideas for this type of workshop program at your institution? Maybe that's why you joined. Do you want to think about what your personal goals are for OER implementation? Everyone's meaning to this presentation is going to be really different, but in any case, I want you to take a moment to access the activity guide and think about your goals. And while you do that, I'm going to play this little video that just gives us a little time to focus on our activity guide and the work that we're doing. It's a lovely timer I've chosen. I was very torn between this one and a 30-second video of a ketchup application machine that someone made to make hot dog eating faster. So there is that. But we will be playing the timer each time so that you feel that you've got some time to consider what we're talking about. And of course, your thoughts and your use of the activity guide can expand beyond this period of time. So I'd like to now invite you to share your goals if you are willing to. So we are going to be using Mentimeter just like we used in the opening plenary session. You can go to mentee.com and enter the 8-digit code that you see on your screen. I am going to switch applications on the screen, but the code will remain at the top. So just bear with me while I switch. So again, here is our Mentee code, and I see a few folks are already in. Mentimeter giving me the thumbs up, which is really appreciated. Again, you can use the QR code if you are willing and able to do so. But I'd like you to share what your session goals are with me for today. So we have some responses coming in, and thank you for those of you who are participating so far. We would like to learn to support faculty in adopting OER, leave this presentation better able to run my OER FLC. Oh, and I assume that's faculty learning community, but that's just a guesstimate. Finding a way to make OER meaningful and doable for faculty. That's amazing. Plan to aid faculty in transitioning to OER. Integration at K-12. Hi, K-12 viewers out there. Incorporating OER into an institution that is not receptive. Really interesting. So really going grassroots. Starting our own faculty learning community. I'm actually going to get rid of this thing here. Enhance your existing OER bootcamp. So that's exciting that there are already programs out there. So really appreciate seeing some of these goals. Z degrees or Z creds, as we would say up here in Canada. Moving the needle, verbal support for OER, not a lot of implementation. So that is amazing. Thank you so much. I will maybe in the Oxford Abstracts platform aim to share this as well, because this is really exciting. And look at all the responses too. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time on this because we still have more work to do. So I'm going to switch back to my presentation here. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about also the visioning process. So now that you've had a chance to think about the overarching goals of your program, I want to dive deeper into what your specific program might be about. So what does it aim to achieve? And a lot of you had that stated in your goals. What can participants expect to gain from their involvement? What types of discussions or interactions are going to be taking place, and who is actively doing that? So your program's vision is that guiding star and the why behind its existence. When we talk about what your program does, we're looking at the mission, objectives, intended outcomes, and the driving force for everything else that follows. So let's go from our goals to thinking about the three sort of key things about your vision. And one is what participants can anticipate gaining from the experience, sort of what's in it for them. Is there specific skills, knowledge, or personal growth? And understanding what those benefits are can be a critical aspect of the program in terms of how you design it. And at the heart of any program then lies the interactions that take place within it and the conversations that really help shape the learning experience. And for those of you who have faculty learning communities, you're already probably very familiar with how those work. So are you looking for informal, structured, a blend of both? Looking at sort of creating those spaces and opportunities where that magic happens. And finally, we have to think about the people that make this all happen, really your participants, who are the lifeblood of the program. Their diverse backgrounds, perspectives, and experiences contribute to that magic making. And understanding sort of who your target is really helps you tailor to their experience. So as we refine the vision from your goals to more specifics, you can help unravel the essence of what your program does and how it shapes that experience. So again, I'm going to give you some time to consider my words and use your activity guide. If you haven't already opened the activity guide, I'm going to ask Pranjal or Rebecca to put it in the chat again. And we're just going to have a little moment to consider and write down a few notes. It doesn't need to be a fully formed vision, but considering sort of what you'd like to happen in this program. And you can, I mean, the star motif is actually really fitting. Maybe you can, really think big and like kind of, what is it, shoot for the moon and land upon the stars. So maybe like really like think big. This is your own work that is being done. No one else can see it. You can share it if you want to or not. And so again, I'm going to encourage you to share in our Mentimeter. If you already have it open, that's great. If not, here is the code. It will be shown at the top of my presentation again. And so I would like to hear about your vision for your OER incubator. Oh, look, there's stuff already. That is amazing. Collaborative spaces, welcoming, supportive, successive iterations. Love that. Someone is an open ed practitioner for sure. I'm going to close this link, but the code to join is always at the top. Open, useful, and well attended, really succinct and clear. Current training towards a community of practice, so less of that kind of stale, old school professional development. It's amazing. Support faculty as they convert their courses to OER. Great. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect yet. And as we'll talk about a little bit today, we will revise as we go along, and you can as well. That's why Google Docs are so great. Faculty taking initiative and supported by the library rather than driven by the library. That's amazing. Get students to be OER creators. That is also something that we love here at Ontario Tech. Hybrid model and self-driven. All right. Thank you so much for your participation in that, folks. I really do appreciate it. It does lend so much more interest to the presentation. And now I am going to pass the mic over to my wonderful colleague, Rebecca, who will start talking about our framework.
Thank you, Sarah, and hello, everyone. It's so wonderful to see so many people out today. This is so exciting. But yes, I'm going to delve a little bit into the framework we use to kind of design and operate the incubator, talking about the essential components we want to include in finished incubator projects, but also within the incubator program itself. But as you can see, the specific framework that we're referring to in this context is the CARE framework. It was first developed by Petritis et al. In 2018 to be this concrete guide for individuals or institutions who wanted to contribute to both the growth and the sustainability of the open movement. So the CARE framework is made up of 4 actions that we can take to ensure that we're participating in the open movement in ways that are adding value. And that's value both for participants in the movement and the eventual users of any OER or open resource we develop. And we're going to go briefly over each of these 4 actions, but then we're going to move on to thinking about how we can apply them and include them in our own programming. So first, we need to make sure that we contribute to raising OER awareness. That's the C in CARE. And contribute in this context can mean many different things. You can contribute by developing and maintaining existing OER, so that they're more relevant to current users. You can contribute financially, maybe by sponsoring an awareness event or by offering compensation for work on open resources if you have the capacity to do that. But you can also contribute to the movement by helping to distribute OER to students who may not be able to access it in its current form. And this could look something like translating a resource into another language or converting it into a more accessible format. But in the case of something like an incubator program, your contribution could be providing that structure and guidance in an OER design experience to people who may not have the capacity to do that on their own. And there are many ways to contribute meaningfully to the open movement, and it's worth reflecting on what your individual contribution could look like for you. But beyond that, we need to ensure that all open works and OER creators receive proper attribution. That's the A in CARE. One of the things that sets OER creation apart from traditional publishing is that anyone can participate. And I would argue that the collaborative potential of the movement is one of its greatest strengths, especially considering that this collaboration often happens over time and is cumulative. Because of that, it's very important to ensure that every contributor to an OER receives credit for their contributions. And the creators of the CARE framework describe it as conspicuous attribution, and I love that. That's such a fun phrase. And this idea that we're not only providing credit where credit is due, we're doing it clearly and openly. And when you're designing an incubator-like program, you want to make sure that your own attribution is consistent and prominent. You can think of it as kind of a lead by example situation. So your participants can experience that level of collaboration and attribution while in the program. So the next action we take within the CARE framework is to plan for our open materials to be released elsewhere. beyond ourselves and even the institution from which they originate. And in order to properly plan for that release, we need to build it into the design of the open materials that we're creating. And this goes beyond licensing materials under a Creative Commons or open license, although that's absolutely an important tool for easily sharing what you create. It also involves looking at the platform where you're hosting the material. Can anyone download, change, and share that material? If not, can you look at alternate means of delivery to reduce some of those barriers to access? And one of the advantages of an OER incubator program is that participants can start thinking about these questions from the start of their projects, right? We don't run the risk of having these really excellent resources that nobody can use because they can't access them. And considering how people will access the resource becomes part of the resource's design process. And lastly, we need to make sure that we are empowering everyone to participate in the open movement, and that's especially new and non-traditional voices. Something that I've always found really wonderful about the open movement is this ability that we have to engage with learners in way. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the chat. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, I sound good? Okay. Okay, whew. All right, good to know. Welcome back. Oh, excellent. Okay, but yeah, something really wonderful about the open movement is this ability that we have to engage with diverse learners in the way that traditional publishing often just kind of doesn't. And at the most basic level, that can look like us adapting open course materials to meet the needs of the learners who use them and not the other way around. But however, we also need to make sure that we're engaging with producers of open materials in the same way. The movement itself benefits from and relies upon broad participation from individuals with varied backgrounds and different areas and levels of expertise. And this is an area where an incubator model is really very useful. It's not a lecture or kind of a high-level theoretical, hypothetical thing. We're providing our participants with a guided, structured way to explore the open movement through the context of resources that they already want to create. So we might be providing the basic tools, but the participants are still crafting their own experiences. So the CARE framework, as I mentioned, identifies these essential components to include in the OER incubator program, but it's not limited to the incubator program. We use the CARE framework to support all of our open activities at Ontario Tech. And actually, I noticed someone link the full text of the CARE framework in the chat. It's a really excellent resource. I highly recommend you go through it if you haven't. But the reason we do apply the CARE framework to our open work on Ontario Tech is because it provides this flexibility we need for everyone interested in open education to participate on an equal footing. And that's whether they're early adopters of open or that they're brand new to the concept. You don't need to be an expert in open to get involved in the open movement. And that's something that we really wanted to highlight with the OER incubator program. There are also a few specific places within the program where participants have the chance to apply the CARE framework themselves. We provide a detailed breakdown of open licenses and best practices for attribution, and that's both in the resources we share with participants, as well as in our weekly incubator workshops. But we also take a week early on in the program, I believe it's week 2, yes, to focus on the basics of finding and evaluating OER. And that week is specifically designed for people who maybe aren't familiar with open resources and where to find them. So we try to give them these tools that they need to engage with the open movement in a meaningful way without maybe having a high level of expertise going in. And in both cases, we're encouraging our participants to make use of the CARE framework within their own contexts. So CARE is not just a guiding framework for an incubator program, the program itself. It becomes a guiding framework that participants can then take with them after the experience and help to shape the open movement at the institution as a whole. So that was a lot of information, I know, but now that you have this brief overview of the CARE framework and the components you need to consider, we can now think about how you can incorporate these components into your own program and vision. And that could be either all 4 components, or if there's only 1 out of the 4 that really spoke to you, that's fine. But we're going to bring up our timer again, our beautiful writing timer, and you can go ahead. And I'm going to take a quick drink of water. Okay, great. So once again, we have our link to the Mentimeter. If you already have it up, the slide should change momentarily, and you can share your thoughts in there. But I would love to hear about how any ideas you have for applying the CARE framework, or how it could be relevant to your own vision of the program. I know that was a lot of information. It might take a bit, but that's fine. Oh, you have a model on Creative Commons licenses. Excellent. Oh, what else do we have? Need more time to think about this? And yeah, that's totally okay. Totally understandable. Provide info on context and purpose. Excellent. Foster a feeling of community. I love that. And it helps to bring in those that are timid to OER. Yes, that's something we really, when we were first kind of conceiving how we were going to do the incubator program, that's what we wanted to do. How do we bring in people who maybe are brand new and don't know what OER means? Thinking intentionally about platforms. Excellent. Demonstrating on how resources can be differentiated. Oh, and encouraging attribution for staff, student copy editors, librarians, etc. Absolutely. Making sure that everyone who works on the project is credited for the project is really, really important.
And look how they're holding the controllers. So I've been keeping up with
Hey folks, I think we have some potential unmuted participants, so just double check if you don't mind that you're on mute so that we don't hear anything we're not supposed to hear.
Thank you. All right. The empowering aspect might be great for librarians who are still leveling up. Absolutely. Encouraging faculty to think about which Creative Commons license they want on their own work, and requiring them to add their course syllabus to an institutional repository with a Creative Commons license on it. Ooh, I love that. And focus on how we can empower each group, faculty and students. That's really awesome. And it goes back to kind of the context of which everyone is working in. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your thoughts. This is really wonderful. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to my wonderful colleague, Pranjal.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hello, everyone. And I will be talking about the format of our OER incubator. And we're going to be identifying some stakeholders and discussing some delivery options. So for many of us, the primary stakeholders that come to mind when we talk about open education are faculties, instructors, librarians, bookstores, and textbook publishers. However, we don't often enough think about open education stakeholders beyond the academic community. There are actually many more potential stakeholders that work on public interest issues and see open educational resources as relevant to their interest and concerns. So our stakeholders include our participants, of course, faculty members, instructors, and TAs. Then we've also got our facilitators in alignment with the Teaching and Learning Center, library, and expert guest speakers. And lastly, others as mentioned previously. This also includes our students as they're indirectly involved. All right, so now that we've had a little bit of a discussion over stakeholders, it's time to reflect on who the important stakeholders for your program may be. So I'm just going to pull up our beautiful timer. There you go, and give you guys some time to think about it. All right, and now that we've had some time to think about it, I would again encourage all of you guys to discuss those thoughts with us. So you can, oops, if we can go back to, oh, there you go. So again, the code's right up there if you haven't already had the chance to log in. Everyone in the institution, since it is within our strategic plan. I love that. Participants, faculty, staffs, department chairs, deans. Yeah. So I know when we mention others, there's so much we can do with that information, right? Approve funding and taxpayers. Ooh, faculty, all kinds, grad students, undergrad. Student government, I love that. K-12 teachers, school brand members, board members, awesome. I know, I think I'm so intrigued in seeing how we can really incorporate and bring open education into like primary schools and like high schools and stuff too, right? Love that. Senior admin required for funding. Yes, yes. I love all of these answers. Brought in our vision of stakeholders at my institution, yeah. Community partners, service learning community collaborators, students, librarians. Awesome. So I think we've had some time to kind of think about that, and I think the reason why we love Mentimeter so much is because we can also kind of see what others are thinking. So that's awesome. Now I'm going to be talking a little bit about our target group. So our target group is mainly faculty members, as mentioned, instructors. But again, our incubator is also open and relevant to TAs, grad students, and staff. We have the TLC facilitate the sessions with occasional guest speakers from the Teaching and Learning Center, as well as the Open Education Lab here at Ontario Tech and the library. So now that we're talking about encouraging participants, I know this can be a tricky one. And so it is so essential to keep the needs and expectations of our target audience in mind when planning the sessions ahead of time. Some ways we can have our audience participate and encourage participation in our OER incubator are, first, to have a clear agenda. Start by providing a clear agenda before the meeting. Let participants know what to expect and what topics will be covered. The second is also interactive tools, Mentimeter being one. Utilize interactive tools and features available in your online meeting platform. These may include chat, polls, Q&A sessions, breakout rooms, etc. Encourage participants to use these features to ask questions, provide feedbacks, and share their thoughts. As I've already mentioned, we use Mentimeter a lot in our OER incubator at Ontario Tech. Another way that I have found very, very helpful is icebreakers. Start the meeting with an icebreaker or a brief introduction round. This helps to create a more relaxed atmosphere and encourages participants to participate and really get their thoughts out. And then we've also got one more on the list, which is open-ended questions. Ask open-ended questions that require more than a simple yes and no answer. This promotes discussions and allow participants to share their perspective. Next slide, please. Thank you. So our sessions are mainly structured, as mentioned, but can also can be self-paced for anyone who needs it to be. The OER Incubator program runs on an online, synchronous plus asynchronous model. The synchronous sessions are held online. This means our participants have the freedom to attend our live meetings held online or choose an all asynchronous model. This model was chosen based on the historical attendance of our past events. All right, so now that we've had some time to discuss some delivery options, I would like you guys to take some time to now think about some delivery options that you may have at your institute and what your participants may want or need. So I'm going to pull up the timer again. All right, I know it's not plenty of time, but I think it should be enough time to kind of get the discussion going. So again, same thing. If you haven't already had the chance, the code's right up there, or you can scan the code and share your thoughts and your opinions. The synchronous option, although the benefits of blended should be emphasized. I do agree. I think especially now moving on with everything kind of being hybrid and blended, I do agree. And I think I was actually at a conference earlier, and the amount of like polls and surveys we saw where people, not just students, professors, everyone are kind of going for the hybrid blended option. It's there now. Live virtual with recordings. Yes, recordings again for people who I can't make it. I think that's a really great option. Digital materials and small in-person meetings. Ooh, to build the collaborative. I love that. I think that's awesome, right? To have like these small hurdles, like, and like talk about the open movement in general. For fellowship, we use self-paced learning, live group meetings, live one-on-one meetings. I love the one-on-one option. Love it. Opportunity to meet with outside collaborators and timeline. Yeah, we moved to in 1 month asynchronous self-paced Canvas course. Love that too. Yeah, I think they're all really great, and I think with this we're also getting some ideas to how we can make our incubator better for next year, right? Awesome. All right. And with that, I'm gonna pass the mic back to Sarah, who will be talking a little bit about the feedback.
Thanks, Pranjal. And thank you so much, everyone, for continuing to participate in the Mentimeter. It's really exciting. And I hope if you didn't participate, at least there's some ideas that you can like borrow from folks who are responding in the polls, so that you continue to build ideas. And again, the activity guide is meant to be like a continuous document, like a starting place for you to sort of jot down the ideas that sound good to you. So we're finally going to be talking about feedback and sort of how we look to open educational practices and how we link them to our work and ultimately to the work that folks do in the incubator program. So in the OER incubator here at Ontario Tech, we don't just talk about OER, although we do a lot. We also really strive to expose our participants to essential components of open educational practice, particularly those that are outlined by Hegarty in 2015, which you can see on my screen. And really, not only does it help inform the way we've set up the activities in our incubator, but we try to really model the practices to educators while we're facilitating, so they can learn how it can be used in their own classrooms. And I think one of the particularly important pieces, and I mean, I could talk about all 8 till the end of the day probably, is feedback and iteration. And it really is an essential component. And I see, Donna, the reference, and I can get it to you when I stop presenting, if that works for you. It may or may not be linked in our activity guide as well. So we really look to feedback and iteration as kind of the key practice during our facilitation, because the program that we envision, we don't want it to be stagnant, because the participants aren't stagnant, and the progress that we make in open is not stagnant. And we really want to, remain true to incorporating the experiences of all participants, stakeholders, and also our facilitators. So we really do place an emphasis on fostering an environment where we can comfortably give feedback, both in private, sort of just to the facilitators, but also in group feedback. So private feedback for each session gives us a channel that we can open for individuals to express their thoughts and suggestions in a way that we can really use to revise the content of our program to ensure we continue to offer relevant sessions. And I think this is a big distinguishing factor from some pre-packaged canned PD programs that only get updated once every like 8 years. And we may have our ideas of what might be useful to our participants, but really they're the ones that we're here for. So their unique experiences are what are going to help us maintain that relevance of the program. We usually do this through Google Forms, but any feedback tool you have where you can save the data and look back on it later will do. At the same time, group feedback sessions within our OER incubator encourage that collaborative community feeling that so many of you mentioned in our Mentimeter, and the sharing of collective wisdom. Participants, facilitators, and stakeholders can come together to engage in constructive discussions, which foster a sense of community and a shared responsibility for program improvement. By uniting the voices of our campus community in these sessions, we create a tapestry of insights that helps guide us in tailoring our educational offerings to better support the diverse needs and aspirations of all of them, the people that are involved. So of course, it's time to return back to our activity guide. And I want you to consider how and when you will gather feedback. So will you use, single program evaluation at the end? Will you have session by session, quick feedback forms as a form of an exit ticket? Will there be group feedback sessions and discussions? And a little bit of thought too as to what technology you might use. So I'll start our timer. And we're almost at the end, folks. You've done so much writing for a conference presentation. So I truly do thank you for sticking with it. And I hope that you've had an opportunity to jot down a few things that might inspire you when you look back on it, say next week or next month or next year. Okay, so finally, we're going back to Mentimeter. Again, here is the code, but I am going to jump to it so that I give you a chance to write. How will you gather feedback? And you can respond to any of those questions. How, when, what are you going to do with it? What technology are you going to use? So our first response is end of the asynchronous training evaluation form, and then you talk about it at the end of the year in a big group discussion. So that's really nice. Simple, quick feedback at the end of each session. So, well, it's still fresh in your participants' minds, but for longer sessions or big creation sprint events, which the TLC at Ontario Tech is doing right after the session, maybe a formal group evaluation like a group interview. Surveys when you have a group's attention. It's great. And again, you can see really how varied the responses are. And that's good. Never would I suggest that we do, end of thing survey and that's it and never look at it again. Mentimeter to get immediate feedback. I also like Mentimeter, if you hadn't guessed. On the spot, tracking questions asked afterwards. An open form available anytime. Yeah, so we do often have that available in our learning management system with just kind of an open discussion board that can be about anything. Actually incorporating the feedback into future events. Yep, and that can be really challenging. One of the ways we manage this is by only offering the incubator once per year, because we have lots of other programming in the Teaching and Learning Center. So we need the time to really sit back and consider what's happening and make the adjustments rather than just offering it, every semester. Okay, so I think we've got the responses have slowed down a little bit. So I will encourage you if you'd like to chime in on anything in the chat, but we are at the end of our formal presentation and we can move into question and answer period. I will, though, before we do that, give credit to the creator of the slide template that we edited, which was created by SlidesGo and includes icons and images by Flat Icon and FreePick. Wonderful, beautiful slide presentation. And I will, I think, close down my screen and go to questions because I'm actually having trouble kind of seeing it. I'm going to stop sharing. Now I'm very large on the screen. I don't know if that is on purpose or not, but okay. So I'm seeing some questions coming in the chat. So thank you. Love it. So Maura Flynn wonders how much content you include regarding the technical considerations. So what we actually have is we have two sort of resources that are the main backbone of the program. One is the activity guide, so very similar to what you have, but there's also a Pressbooks resource that has extensive technical information if participants want it. So we don't typically cover the super technical pieces. We do sort of a high level overview, as Rebecca mentioned, but if someone wants to go deep dive into that, it is provided and we reference it often, but it's not something that folks have to sit through, because I know not everyone has the capacity or the will to, you know, undergo a huge remix or adaptation. They might just want to be able to find the resource and use it, and that is absolutely fine. So that's how we manage that. Katie Harding is asking about timing for the session and what time of year. So we offer it in the spring. The launch of it actually occurs during Global Open Ed Week, so like early March, and it's 7 weeks. So we typically wrap up right before our final exams. And that's sort of our best way, given the flexible or changing schedules over the summer at our institution. So we offer it again annually, sort of beginning of March till mid-April. So the length of the program, it kind of dovetails onto that. Donna, is again, it's 7 weeks. The in-person sessions started out as a single hour like workshop, but there was so much discussion that we ended up moving it to, I think we're at 2 hours for a live session now, because folks actually, because we've built it in such a way, there is a lot of organic discussion, and we go off topic a ton. But I think that's good, because we get a lot of information for other programming, even just out of that discussion. So we have, I think we've offered it about 3 or 4 times now, and we have had to change the time. And maybe we find with the next group of participants that they don't really want to be talking as much, or they're mostly interested in asynchronous. And so we have the flexibility to shorten it if we need to. So Justin is asking how many people are in each cohort. It does vary. So there is no limit on the numbers, and it does kind of change week to week too. So if someone is at a conference, for one of the weeks, they might go asynchronous and then they might not change back. We typically have, I think, between 1 or 2 dozen folks. Now our institution is small or large, depending on how you view it. We have 11,000-ish students. And then the faculty complement that go along with it. I am average size in the gallery. Thanks, Eileen. Janice is wondering how many of you staff this. So you can see the primary facilitators are here with me today. Rebecca is our guru in accessible and inclusive design. Pranjal is the coordinator of our open education lab, so deals with our topics in OER creation, some of the technical stuff, as well as student co-creation. And I'm an instructional designer by training, so I manage the areas of inclusive and instructional design for that. But we have had years where we have managed to outsource. We used to have an open librarian at our institution, so she would actually manage some of the searching topics, which I think is like week 2, 3, where you look for OER, because that's her expertise. So if you have folks at your institution who, you know, their wheelhouse is accessible design, call them in, get them to have, you know, to bring sort of a presentation and then participate in the discussions, because it's, you know, it's more interesting. It creates that, again, that community feeling. They have the expertise, so why not use it? So I'm looking at Janice's workload question. So the beauty of it is, because we have like the structure set up, the year to year is basically some editing and tweaking, and the delivery is like sitting in the workshop, delivering the online content, maybe getting your Canvas or other LMS course shell ready, and doing registration. So it fits in pretty well, because March is a super busy time in our teaching and learning center with a lot of things that we put on. So we find it fairly manageable, and we are a pretty small team that offers the program. Katie, thank you for the 5-minute reminder. Are there limiting factors on how many faculty, like funding or staff time? So I think this would be super varied depending on the institution and what sort of service requirements are for faculty. Again, it is part of our sort of key programming for the Teaching and Learning Center. So it is sort of an expectation that we continue to offer it. And it is a no-cost program. So if we're running it and, you know, a teaching assistant wants to join, or a graduate student who's interested in making OER or is in the Faculty of Education and wants to explore that, they are encouraged to join as well. Oh, so Marcus just asked like the hardest question in the conference, I think. How do you convince faculty to give up publishers' materials with live feedback, like homework grading? To be honest, I don't know that I have like the answer. We did have a case where I approached a faculty member asking that they give up a particular publisher's homework grading function, and they basically kicked me out of their office, but then a year later converted to open because they were seeing that, you know, the students weren't getting anything out of it, and sometimes just foregoing it altogether. So sometimes you have to use the old adage of like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, and let them know that it's here and encourage them, but they're going to come to it on their own. And I think too, that particular person had a lot of colleagues in their faculty that were engaging in things like the incubator. So they kind of got like pulled along, like as a peer pressure kind of thing. And inclusive access, like, yeah, I mean, oh, so Pranjal has a question about the OER lab. So it is housed within the Teaching and Learning Center and has a physical location in our English Language Center at the university, but it was in the library this summer. We play like the shell game with space here at Ontario Tech. Maybe speaking with the wrong end of the horse, it's possible. Libre texts, I know Rajiv was talking about that earlier today in his keynote about his homework platform. And there are ones out there. We have used ones in the past, and it just depends on, you know, what they want. And never would we say that this is the one you have to use because we know it, because it's kind of contrary to our mission. I'm just looking at the time. We have 2 minutes left by my clock. So I will, once again, if you're typing a last minute question, but thank you so much. Thank you to the organizers of not only this particular presentation, but also to all you listening and to the folks who put together this whole conference. I'm a board member, and it's a scary amount of work that some of the staff have done. And also thank you, as always, Rebecca and Pranjal, my partners in Open. Thank you so much for being so wonderful. So the time commitment estimate, we actually, Donna and I can answer this right as we end off. It's about, we like to say like 3 hours a week. So including the discussion and the filling out time. So if they're asynchronous, they can count on about 3 hours if they're using the guide, and if not, they're not. All right, thanks everybody. It is 1:24, and so I am going to sign off. Have a wonderful Open Ed, and thank you so much for listening.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.